The celebration in the command center of Research Station Omega-7 was unlike anything the Vorthak had experienced in cycles. Commander Vex stood before the massive viewport, his four arms crossed behind his chitinous back, watching the twin suns of Kepler 442 billion cast long shadows across the facility's metallic surface. His mandibles clicked in satisfaction as he turned to address his subordinates. "Gentlemen," Vex announced, his voice carrying the distinctive gravelly tone of his species, "today marks a turning point in this war." Lieutenant Krill, a smaller Vorthak with nervous energy that made his antennae twitch constantly, bounced on his 6 legs. "Sir, I still can't believe we actually caught one of their special forces operatives. A human elite soldier, just walking into our perimeter like he was taking a stroll." Major Blix, whose scarred carapace told stories of countless battles, let out a harsh laugh that sounded like grinding metal. "Walking is generous, Krill. The pathetic creature practically surrendered before we even raised our weapons. Is this what the humans call their finest warriors?" The 3 aliens shared what passed for laughter among their kind, a series of clicking sounds that echoed through the sterile command chamber. Banks of monitors surrounding them displayed tactical data, security feeds, and most importantly, a single holding cell 3 levels below. "Show me the capture footage again," Vex commanded. The main screen flickered to life, displaying grainy surveillance video from the facility's outer perimeter. A lone figure in military fatigues had approached their sensor grid, hands visible, weapon holstered. When the patrol drone surrounded him, he had simply raised his hands and smiled. Actually smiled. "Look at that expression," Blix sneered, his compound eyes focusing on the human's face. "No fear, no rage, no desperate final stand? Where is the legendary human stubbornness we have heard so much about?" Krill's antennae drooped slightly. "Maybe we intercepted false intelligence, sir." "Perhaps this Marcus Kane isn't as important as our sources claimed." "Nonsense," Vex interrupted, his primary arms gesturing toward a data pad. "Our deep space reconnaissance confirmed his identity. Marcus Kane, Lieutenant Colonel, Earth Special Operations Command. 23 confirmed solo missions behind enemy lines. The humans call him the Ghost for his infiltration skills." "Some ghost," Blix muttered. "More like a lost tourist." The footage continued, showing Kane being escorted through the facility's corridors. Even under guard, surrounded by armed Vorthak soldiers, the human maintained an almost casual demeanor. He looked around with what appeared to be genuine curiosity, occasionally nodding as if appreciating the architecture. "Switch to the current cell feed," Vex ordered. The screen changed to show their prize prisoner in real time. Kane sat on the edge of his containment unit's sleeping platform, elbows resting on his knees, chin in his hands. He wasn't pacing like most captured beings. He wasn't testing the energy barriers or examining the walls for weaknesses. He was just sitting there, looking remarkably comfortable for someone facing interrogation, torture, and eventual execution. "He's been like that for 3 hours, Krill reported, consulting his instruments. No elevated stress indicators, no attempts at escape, no communications with his forces. His heart rate is actually lower than when we captured him." "Fascinating," Vex mused, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "Perhaps humans are even weaker than we assumed. No wonder they are losing this war." Blix leaned closer to the screen. "Look at his face, Commander. Does that look like defeat to you?" The 3 aliens studied Kane's expression more carefully. There was something in the human's eyes, a subtle gleam that didn't quite match his relaxed posture. When one of the guards passed by his cell, Kane had actually nodded politely, as if greeting a neighbor. "Strange," Krill admitted. "Most prisoners either cower or snarl at their captors. This one seems amused?" "Amused?" Vex's voice carried a note of incredulity. "The creature is facing certain death in our most secure facility, and he's amused?" "Maybe he's in shock," Blix suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Humans are known for irrational responses to stress. A chime echoed through the command center, and a junior technician approached nervously. "Commander Vex, sir, Chief Intelligence Officer Zorth requests permission to begin preliminary questioning of the prisoner. But granted, Vex replied. But tell Zorth to be thorough. I want to know everything about human special operations before we dispose of this Kane. As the technician scurried away, the three officers returned their attention to the monitor. Kane had shifted position slightly, now leaning back against the cell wall. For just a moment, as if sensing their observation, he looked directly at the camera. The expression on his face was unmistakable now. He was definitely amused. "Sir," Krill said slowly, his voice carrying a note of uncertainty. "What if there's something we are missing here?" Vex waved a dismissive hand. "Krill, you worry too much. The human is broken, defeated, resigned to his fate. Some species handle capture differently than others. The important thing is we have him, and soon we will have everything his primitive mind contains about Earth's military capabilities." Blix nodded agreement, but his eyes remained fixed on the screen. "Still, Commander, there's something about his behavior that doesn't quite fit the profile of a defeated soldier." "You are both overthinking this," Vex declared, though he continued watching Kane with growing interest. "We have achieved what our forces have been trying to accomplish for months. We have captured one of their elite operatives. Whatever games he thinks he's playing, he's in our hands now." The three aliens watched as Kane stood up, stretched casually, and began what appeared to be a simple exercise routine. Push-ups, sit-ups, basic calisthenics, all performed with the relaxed rhythm of someone maintaining their daily routine rather than someone trapped in mortal danger. "He's treating this like a hotel stay," Krill observed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Let him," Vex said, though his confidence was beginning to sound forced. "Enjoy your comfort while it lasts, human. Tomorrow, Zorth begins extracting every secret in that soft little brain of yours." As if he could hear them through the surveillance system, Kane paused in his exercises and looked up at the camera again. This time he actually smiled and gave a small, friendly wave. The command center fell silent. "Commander," Blix said finally, "I think we need to increase security around the prisoner." Nex's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of growing agitation. "Do it, and inform all personnel that no one, absolutely no one, is to interact with the human outside of official interrogation protocols." But even as he gave the order, Vex couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus Kane knew something they didn't. Something important. Something dangerous. Chief Intelligence Officer Zorth had broken thousands of prisoners during his long career. Humans, Centaurians, even the notoriously stubborn Rigelians had eventually cracked under his methodical approach. Yet as he entered Interrogation Chamber 7, studying the datapad containing Marcus Kane's file, he felt an unusual twinge of uncertainty. The human sat calmly at the metal table, hands folded, looking for all the world like he was waiting for a friendly business meeting. When Zorth's massive frame filled the doorway, Kane looked up with genuine interest. "Well, hello there," Kane said brightly, his voice carrying an almost musical quality that Zorth found immediately irritating. "You must be the intelligence officer. I have to say, your species has really impressive architecture. This whole facility is quite remarkable." Zorth's four eyes narrowed as he settled into the reinforced chair across from Kane. In his 300 cycles of interrogation experience, no prisoner had ever opened a session by complimenting the decor. "I am Chief Intelligence Officer Zorth," he said, his voice deliberately cold and menacing. "You will answer my questions truthfully, or you will suffer consequences beyond your limited human imagination." Kane nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. I'm Marcus Kane, Lieutenant Colonel, Earth Special Operations. Serial number 77492 Alpha Delta. Though, honestly, I'm more interested in learning about you folks. How do you manage to maintain artificial gravity in a facility this size? The engineering must be fascinating." Zorth's mandibles clicked in confusion. Standard interrogation protocol called for establishing dominance through intimidation, but Kane seemed more interested in a technical discussion than showing fear. "Your military designation means nothing here, human. What I require is information about Earth's defensive capabilities, troop movements, and strategic installations. Well, I can certainly share what I know, Kane replied with a helpful smile. Though I should mention up front that most of my missions were solo operations, so my knowledge of larger strategic elements might be somewhat limited. But hey, I'm happy to tell you about Earth's basic military structure. Did you know we still use projectile weapons? Seems primitive compared to your energy-based systems. For the next hour, Kane proved remarkably forthcoming. He provided detailed information about human military ranks, basic organizational structure, and even some tactical procedures. Yet somehow, every answer led to more questions rather than useful intelligence. These projectile weapons, Zorth pressed, what are their effective ranges and penetration capabilities against Vorthak armor? Oh, that varies tremendously depending on the specific ammunition type, barrel length, atmospheric conditions, target angle. Kane launched into a technical explanation so detailed and complex that Zorth found himself taking notes just to keep track. When Kane finally finished, Zorth realized he had learned nothing actionable while somehow feeling educated about human ballistics theory. Enough, Zorth interrupted. Tell me about your mission parameters for this operation. Kane's expression shifted to one of mild embarrassment. Well, that's a bit awkward actually. See, I was supposed to conduct reconnaissance on your outer perimeter defenses, but honestly, I got completely turned around out there. Your security grid is incredibly sophisticated. I was trying to map patrol patterns when your drones found me. You were conducting reconnaissance and simply got lost? Embarrassing, isn't it? Kane chuckled. 23 successful missions, and I get caught because I can't read a topographical map properly. My commanding officers are going to have a field day with this one. Zorth leaned back in his chair, studying Kane's face for signs of deception. The human's biometric readings showed no stress indicators, no elevated heart rate, no perspiration patterns typical of lying subjects. Either Kane was telling the truth, or he possessed control over his physiological responses that no human should have. Speaking of your security systems, Kane continued conversationally. I noticed some really interesting sensor arrays during my escort here. Are those quantum resonance detectors? The energy signature patterns were unlike anything I have seen before. That information is classified, Zorth replied automatically. Of course. I wasn't asking for operational details. I'm just curious about the theoretical applications. I mean, the power requirements alone must be staggering. How do you manage the energy distribution throughout a facility this size without creating detectable heat signatures? Despite himself, Zorth found Kane's curiosity oddly disarming. Most prisoners ask questions designed to probe for weaknesses or escape routes. Kane seemed genuinely fascinated by Vorthak technology from a purely academic standpoint. Our power systems are far beyond human comprehension, Zorth said, though he felt compelled to add, we utilize crystallized antimatter cores with quantum field regulators. Antimatter. Kane's eyes lit up with excitement. That's incredible. And you have solved the containment stability problems? Human scientists have been working on antimatter applications for decades, but we can never maintain stable containment fields for more than a few minutes. The next 20 minutes passed with Kane asking increasingly technical questions about Vorthak engineering, each query demonstrating surprising knowledge of advanced physics and energy systems. Zorth found himself explaining concepts he had never discussed with a prisoner before, drawn into what felt more like a scientific consultation than an interrogation. You know, Kane said during a pause in their discussion, I have to admit, being captured might be the most educational experience of my career. Your people have achieved technological advances that human civilization won't reach for centuries. Zorth's training finally reasserted itself. This is not a technical seminar, human. You are a prisoner of war facing execution. Right, sorry about that, Kane said, though his apologetic tone sounded more amused than frightened. I tend to get carried away when discussing interesting technology. It's probably why I'm better suited for solo missions than strategic planning. Why were you really in this sector? Zorth demanded, trying to regain control of the interrogation. Kane's expression became earnest. Honestly, Command suspected you folks might be developing some kind of advanced weapons system out here. Nothing specific, just rumors and energy readings from long-range sensors. They sent me to take a look around, maybe snap a few pictures if I could get close enough. And what did you observe before your capture? Not much, unfortunately. Your perimeter security is really impressive. I barely got within visual range of the facility before those drones surrounded me. Though I have to say, the external design is quite elegant. Whoever your architects are, they really understand how to blend functionality with aesthetic appeal. Zorth stared at Kane for a long moment. Every instinct told him something was wrong with this interrogation, but he couldn't identify what. Kane had been cooperative, informative, and seemingly honest. Yet somehow Zorth felt like he had learned more about human engineering curiosity than about human military capabilities. Session terminated, Zorth announced, rising from his chair. Guards will return you to your cell. Thank you for the fascinating conversation. Kane called out as the security team entered. I hope we can continue our discussion soon. I have so many more questions about your antimatter containment systems. As Kane was escorted away, still chatting amicably with his guards about the facility's lighting systems, Zorth reviewed his notes. Pages of detailed information about human military structure, technological capabilities, and operational procedures. Yet none of it felt useful. For the first time in his career, Zorth wondered if he had just been interrogated by his own prisoner. Guard Corporal Flux had been assigned to the overnight shift in Detention Block C for 3 cycles, and frankly, it was the most boring assignment in the entire facility. Most prisoners either cowered in silence or hurled threats and insults at anyone who passed their cells. The human, however, was proving to be surprisingly pleasant company. So there I was, Kane was saying from his position near the energy barrier, 3 kilometers underground in what used to be a subway tunnel, trying to explain to my commanding officer why I had somehow managed to get an entire unit lost beneath New York City. Flux found himself chuckling, a sound that emerged as a series of chittering clicks. How does one lose an entire military unit in their own city? Well, apparently when you confidently tell everyone you know a shortcut, you should actually know the shortcut, Kane replied with a self-deprecating grin. Took us 6 hours to find our way back to the surface. My lieutenant colonel still brings it up during briefings. The conversation was interrupted by Guard Private Nix approaching with the evening meal dispenser. Unlike Flux, Nix maintained strict protocol and had initially disapproved of his partner's informal chats with the prisoner. Mealtime, human, Nix announced coldly, activating the food slot. Thank you, Private Nix, Kane said warmly, accepting the nutrition pack. I hope your family is doing well. How did your offspring's educational assessment go? Nix's mandibles twitched in surprise. Kane had somehow remembered their casual conversation from 2 days earlier about Nix's young spawn starting advanced mathematics courses. The assessment went well, Nix replied reluctantly. Top percentile in computational analysis. That's fantastic. Kane's enthusiasm seemed genuinely heartfelt. You must be incredibly proud. Mathematics was always my weakest subject. I barely passed basic calculus in military academy. Despite his reservations, Nix found himself warming to the human's interest. What subjects did you excel in? History and languages, mostly. I speak about 7 Earth languages fluently, plus I have picked up bits and pieces of others during my travels. I have always been fascinated by how different cultures develop unique ways of expressing complex ideas. But 7 languages? Flux asked, impressed. That seems excessive for military operations. Kane laughed. You'd be surprised how often it comes in handy. Though I have to admit, learning Vorthak has been incredibly challenging. Your grammatical structure is unlike anything I have encountered. The way you modify meaning through harmonic resonance in your speech patterns is absolutely brilliant. Both guards exchanged glances. The human had been attempting to learn their language? and he was complimenting their linguistic sophistication. "You have been studying our language?" Nix asked, his suspicious tone softening slightly. "As much as I can without proper instruction," Kane admitted. "I find languages fascinating, and yours is particularly elegant, though I'm probably butchering the pronunciation terribly." Kane proceeded to attempt a simple greeting in Vorthak. His pronunciation was indeed terrible, but the effort was unmistakably genuine. Both guards found themselves correcting his grammar and helping him with proper inflection. "The tonal harmony is crucial," Flux explained, demonstrating the correct way to express gratitude. "Your vocal cords cannot achieve our full range, but you can approximate the meaning through emphasis patterns." "Like this?" Kane tried again, managing a slightly better approximation. "Better," Nix acknowledged, and Kane beamed with satisfaction. Their language lesson was interrupted by an urgent beeping from the cell block's environmental control panel. Red warning lights began flashing as an error message appeared on the primary display. "What is that?" Flux asked, moving to examine the readout. "Atmospheric recycling malfunction," Nix replied, his voice tight with concern. "The oxygen mixture regulators are showing critical errors. We need to contact maintenance immediately." Kane approached the barrier, studying the warning display with interest. "May I ask what the error codes indicate?" "System feedback loop in the atmospheric processors," Flux explained absently while trying to reach the maintenance department. "The regulation algorithms are stuck in a recursive cycle." Kane mused, tilting his head thoughtfully. "On Earth, we sometimes see similar problems with closed-loop life support systems. Usually it's caused by sensor calibration drift creating false feedback signals. Maintenance is not responding," Nix reported with growing anxiety. "If this system fails, the entire detention block will be without proper atmospheric regulation. What if you tried resetting the sensor array calibration sequence?" Kane suggested helpfully. "If the sensors are providing inaccurate readings, the system might be trying to correct problems that don't actually exist." Flux looked at the human with surprise. "You understand atmospheric regulation systems? Basic principles, anyway. Military installations require redundant life support systems, so we receive training in emergency maintenance procedures. Your technology is obviously more advanced, but the fundamental concepts might be similar." Nix hesitated, then activated the emergency override panel. "The calibration sequence, how would we access that?" Kane studied the display carefully. "Well, I'm just guessing based on human systems, but usually there's a diagnostic subroutine that can be manually triggered. Try looking for anything labeled as system initialization or baseline reset." Following Kane's suggestions, Flux navigated through several menu layers until he found the sensor calibration protocol. Within minutes, the warning lights stopped flashing and the atmospheric readings returned to normal parameters. "Remarkable," Nix said, staring at Kane with new respect. "Your suggestion resolved the malfunction." "Just basic troubleshooting logic," Kane replied modestly. "Though I'm impressed by how intuitive your interface design is. Human systems usually require much more complex input sequences." Word of Kane's assistance with the atmospheric crisis spread quickly through the facility's lower ranks. By the next day, several off-duty personnel had found excuses to pass by Detention Block C, curious about the helpful human prisoner. Senior Guard Tess approached Flux during the afternoon shift change. "I heard the humans solved our atmospheric problem yesterday." He provided helpful suggestions, Flux corrected, though his tone carried clear admiration. "He seems to understand technical systems quite well." "Command is considering modified detention protocols for him," Tess explained. "Given his cooperative behavior and non-violent disposition, there's discussion about allowing supervised recreation periods." Kane, who had been quietly reading a data pad provided by sympathetic guards, looked up with interest. "Supervised recreation? That sounds wonderful. I have been hoping to see more of your facility. The engineering work here is truly impressive. It would be limited access," Tess clarified. "Common areas only, with constant supervision." But Command believes it might encourage continued cooperation during interrogation sessions. I'd be very grateful for the opportunity, Kane said sincerely. Being confined to one room for extended periods is quite challenging, and I'd love to learn more about Vorthak culture and technology. 3 days later, Kane was escorted to Recreation Area Beta for his first supervised break from detention. The space was designed for off-duty personnel relaxation, featuring comfortable seating areas, entertainment terminals, and large viewports showing the moon's stark surface. Kane's eyes lit up as he examined the room's layout, taking note of corridor entrances, security camera positions, and the general flow of foot traffic. To his guards, he appeared genuinely delighted by the change of scenery. "This is magnificent," he said, moving to one of the viewports. "The view of Kepler 442 billion surface is breathtaking. And these entertainment systems, do they include cultural programs? I'd love to learn more about Vorthak history and traditions." Guard Captain Dex, who was supervising Kane's recreation period, found himself explaining various aspects of Vorthak society while Kane listened with rapt attention. When other personnel entered the area, Kane greeted them politely and engaged in friendly conversation about their duties and specializations. "You work in the engineering section?" Kane asked a young technician named Pip. "That must be fascinating. What kind of projects are you involved with?" "Mostly routine maintenance and system optimization," Pip replied, clearly pleased by Kane's interest. "Though we are currently upgrading several subsystems throughout the facility. Upgrades must be complex in a facility this size," Kane observed. "How do you coordinate modifications without disrupting ongoing operations?" As Pip enthusiastically explained the facility's maintenance protocols and scheduling systems, Kane nodded appreciatively while mentally cataloging every detail about operational procedures, personnel rotations, and system vulnerabilities. To everyone watching, he appeared to be nothing more than a curious, friendly prisoner making the best of his unfortunate situation. What they didn't notice was how Kane's seemingly innocent questions were systematically mapping the facility's structure, identifying key personnel, and building a comprehensive understanding of their security procedures. By the end of his first recreation period, Kane had learned more about Research Station Omega-7's operations than most staff members knew about their own departments. And they had enjoyed teaching him. Senior Security Chief Thane had not risen to his position by trusting friendly prisoners or believing in coincidences. As he reviewed the security reports from Kane's first week of supervised recreation, several details caught his experienced attention like thorns snagging fabric. "Guard Captain Dex," Thane called from his security office, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. Dex entered promptly, his posture respectful but relaxed. "Yes, Chief Thane? Your reports on the human prisoner indicate extensive conversations about facility operations." "Explain." "The prisoner shows genuine interest in our culture and technology, sir. His questions demonstrate intellectual curiosity rather than hostile intent." Thane's 6 eyes narrowed as he consulted his datapad. "According to your logs, he asked about shift rotation schedules, maintenance access protocols, and personnel assignment patterns." "That seems quite detailed for mere curiosity." "He's very observant, sir." When Technician Pip mentioned working different shifts, Kane naturally asked how we coordinate coverage. When Engineer Rax explained system maintenance, Kane inquired about access procedures. His questions flow naturally from our conversations. "Naturally," Thane repeated, his tone skeptical. "Guard Captain, in your experience, how do most prisoners of war behave during recreational periods?" Dex considered the question carefully. "Usually they remain withdrawn, sir. Suspicious of interaction, focused on their own predicament." "Exactly. Yet this human actively engages everyone he meets, remembers personal details about staff members, and displays exceptional interest in our operational procedures." Thane's mandibles clicked rhythmically, a sign of deep thought. "Does that behavior pattern concern you?" "Sir, with respect, the human has been completely cooperative and helpful. He assisted with the atmospheric crisis. He's learning our language. and his presence has actually improved morale in the detention section. Thane's expression hardened. Improved morale? Guard Captain, this facility is not a social club. We are holding a potentially dangerous enemy operative, not hosting a cultural exchange. Before Dex could respond, an urgent chime indicated an incoming communication. Thane activated his display screen, revealing the anxious face of Night Shift Supervisor Vance. Chief Thane, I need to report unusual activity in Detention Block C. Specify. In the human prisoner, sir. During quiet hours when he should be resting, surveillance shows him engaging in systematic movement patterns around his cell. Not pacing or exercise, sir. Something more methodical. Show me the footage. The screen shifted to display infrared surveillance from Kane's cell during the previous night shift. Instead of sleeping, Kane moved with careful precision around the small space, pausing at specific points near the walls, the energy barrier, and the observation window. His movements were too deliberate to be restless pacing, too systematic to be casual exercise. How long has this behavior been occurring? Thane demanded. Every night since his recreation privileges began, sir. Always during minimum supervision periods. Thane studied the footage more carefully. Kane's movement patterns suggested someone conducting detailed measurements or testing response times. Most disturbing was how Kane positioned himself to remain partially concealed from direct camera observation while still appearing to be simply moving around his cell. The guards Flux and Nix are currently on duty in that section, Thane noted. Summon them immediately. 20 minutes later, both guards stood at attention in Thane's office, their nervous energy palpable. The human prisoner has been questioning you extensively about facility operations, Thane began without preamble. Detail those conversations. Flux shifted uncomfortably. Sir, he asks about our work, our families, general topics. He's very personable. Personable prisoners are often the most dangerous, Thane replied coldly. What specific information has he requested about security procedures? Nothing directly, sir, Nix interjected. He might ask how we coordinate shift changes, or wonder about emergency protocols, but always in context of broader conversations about our duties. Emergency protocols? Thane's voice sharpened. Elaborate. When we mentioned being on duty during different alerts, he asked what types of emergencies we might face. We explained basic procedures for facility lockdown, evacuation routes, communication protocols during crisis situations. Thane's mandibles clicked rapidly, his agitation becoming apparent. You provided a prisoner of war with detailed information about our emergency response procedures? Sir, Flux protested. It wasn't classified information. Basic safety protocols that any visitor might need to know. This facility contains classified research projects that could determine the outcome of this war. There are no basic safety protocols here. Everything is classified. Thane's voice carried the weight of barely controlled fury. You have potentially compromised operational security. Both guards stood in stunned silence as the implications of their friendly conversations with Kane became clear. Report to Commander Vex immediately, Thane ordered. Inform him that I request an urgent security review of the prisoner's status. 30 minutes later, Thane found himself in the command center, facing a skeptical Commander Vex while Major Blix and Lieutenant Krill observed the proceedings. Chief Thane, Vex began, your concerns about the humans seem excessive. All reports indicate complete cooperation and non-threatening behavior. Commander, that cooperation itself is suspicious. Enemy operatives trained in infiltration often use charm and helpfulness to gather intelligence while appearing harmless. The humans solved an atmospheric crisis, Blix pointed out. He's learning our language and culture. These are not the actions of someone planning escape or sabotage. Thane activated his portable display, showing the night surveillance footage. This is how he spends his unsupervised time. Systematic movement patterns, methodical examination of cell structure, testing of response times and observation angles. The command staff studied the footage with growing attention. Kane's movements were indeed too purposeful to be casual restlessness, and It could be nervous energy, Krill suggested weakly. Commander. Thane continued. The human has systematically gathered information about our shift rotations, emergency protocols, maintenance procedures, personnel assignments, facility layout, and operational schedules. He's accomplished this by appearing curious and friendly, while our staff voluntarily provided classified information. Vex's expression grew more serious as he reviewed Thane's compiled reports. What do you recommend? Immediate termination of recreation privileges, restriction to maximum security protocols, enhanced interrogation to determine his true mission parameters. That seems extreme, Blix objected. The human has shown no aggressive behavior. Major, the most dangerous enemies are those who never appear threatening until it's too late, Thane replied grimly. This human has displayed behavioral patterns consistent with advanced intelligence-gathering techniques. The debate was interrupted by Guard Captain Dex's urgent communication request. Commander Vex, sir, the human prisoner is requesting permission to speak with facility leadership. About what? Vex asked. He says he has important information about potential security vulnerabilities he's observed during his recreation periods. He wants to help improve our defensive capabilities. The command center fell silent as the implications registered. Kane was now offering to provide security advice about their own facility. Sir, Thane said quietly, if that doesn't confirm my suspicions, nothing will. Vex stared at the communication display for a long moment, his confidence in their prize prisoner beginning to waver. Chief Thane, implement enhanced security protocols for the human immediately. I want full surveillance, restricted access, and a complete review of all information he's been exposed to. And his offer to discuss security improvements, Dex asked over the communication link. Thane answered before Vex could respond. Declined. The human will have no further access to information about this facility's operations. As the command staff dispersed to implement new security measures, none of them noticed the small, satisfied smile that crossed Kane's face as he listened to their discussions through the facility's internal communication system he had learned to access during his helpful conversations with the maintenance staff. The game was entering its next phase, and Kane was right on schedule. The enhanced security protocols lasted exactly 37 hours before Kane decided it was time to end the charade. At precisely 0347 hours, during the minimum staffing period he had learned about from Guard Nix, Kane rose from his sleeping platform and approached the cell's energy barrier with purposeful intent. Computer, he said quietly, speaking in fluent Vortac with perfect tonal harmony that would have shocked his former language tutors. Access Maintenance Override Protocol 77 Delta. The facility's computer system, recognizing what it believed to be authorized maintenance personnel using proper authentication codes Kane had memorized from his conversations with Technician Pip, responded immediately. Maintenance override activated. State your requirements. Initiate atmospheric recalibration sequence for Detention Block C. Authorization, Emergency Protocol Epsilon. Kane had learned about Emergency Protocol Epsilon during his helpful resolution of the atmospheric crisis. What the maintenance staff hadn't realized was that Kane's suggestions hadn't fixed a malfunction, they had created a backdoor access point into the facility's primary systems. As the detention block's atmospheric controls shifted into maintenance mode, the energy barriers automatically reduced to minimum power to prevent interference with life support diagnostics. Kane simply walked through the weakened barrier as if it were a light curtain. Phase 1 complete, he murmured, moving with silent precision down the corridor. Gone was any trace of the friendly, curious prisoner. Kane moved like liquid shadow, every step calculated, every pause strategic. In the security monitoring station, Night Supervisor Vance stared at his displays in confusion. That's odd. The atmospheric system is showing routine maintenance protocols, but no maintenance was scheduled for tonight. His partner, Guard Ellis, glanced at the detention block feeds. Everything looks normal. Wait, where is the human prisoner? And both guards focused on Kane's cell, which appeared empty. Then Ellis noticed movement in the corridor camera feed. It's a figure in detention fatigues, was moving with military precision toward the facility's central hub. Alert. Alert. Prisoner escape in detention block C. Vance shouted into his communication device while activating facility-wide alarm systems. Klaxons began wailing throughout Research Station Omega-7 as Kane reached the main corridor junction. Red emergency lighting bathed the facility in an ominous glow while automated systems announced the security breach in multiple languages. Kane paused at the junction, consulting his mental map of the facility. Thanks to his conversations with various staff members, he knew exactly where to find what he had really come for. The classified research laboratories were 3 levels down, past the engineering section where Rax had proudly explained the facility's power distribution systems. All security teams to Detention Block C, came Commander Vex's voice over the facility intercom. Implement full lockdown protocols. The human prisoner has escaped containment. Kane smiled grimly as he approached the maintenance access shaft that Engineer Rax had mentioned during their discussion of system upgrades. The shaft provided direct access to the lower levels while bypassing most security checkpoints. As he descended through the facility's infrastructure, Kane activated a small device concealed in his clothing, finally revealing the sophisticated technology he had carried throughout his capture. The device immediately began scanning for the specific energy signatures associated with Vortex superweapon research. 3 levels below, in the secure research laboratories, the device detected exactly what Kane had infiltrated the facility to find. Project Starbane, the Vorthak military's most classified development program, was housed in Laboratory Complex 7. Kane's mission had never been reconnaissance. From the beginning, he had been sent to steal the complete research data for humanity's most dangerous enemy weapon. Kane emerged from the maintenance shaft directly into the engineering section. The skeleton crew of night shift technicians looked up in surprise as a figure in detention fatigues appeared among their workstations. "Hello, friends," Kane said cheerfully, his friendly prisoner persona returning just long enough to confuse the technicians. "I seem to have gotten turned around during the emergency drill. Could you point me toward the exit?" "Emergency drill?" Technician Jorel asked, bewildered. "What emergency drill?" Kane's expression shifted, and suddenly the technicians found themselves facing someone completely different. The friendly curiosity was gone, replaced by cold professional calculation. "There's no drill," Kane said quietly. "And you are all going to remain very calm and very quiet while I complete my work here." The technicians, suddenly understanding they were facing a highly trained enemy operative rather than a lost prisoner, wisely chose not to argue with someone who had somehow infiltrated their most secure facility. Kane moved to the primary engineering terminal, his fingers flying over the controls with expertise that demonstrated extensive knowledge of Vorthak computer systems. Within minutes, he had accessed the facility's central database and begun downloading Project Starbane's complete research files. "Fascinating," Kane murmured as data flowed into his concealed storage device. "Stellar destabilization weapon capable of triggering solar flares. Your people have been busy." The download completed just as Security Chief Thane's voice echoed through the facility's communication system. "All personnel, be advised that the human prisoner is extremely dangerous. He is not a confused soldier. Repeat, the human is a trained infiltration specialist." But a bit late for that realization, Kane commented, beginning the next phase of his operation. Using his detailed knowledge of the facility's systems, gained through countless friendly conversations, Kane accessed the power distribution controls that Engineer Rax had so proudly explained. With surgical precision, he began introducing cascading failures into non-critical systems while protecting life support functions. Laboratory lighting failed throughout the facility. The communications systems experienced intermittent disruptions. Security door controls defaulted to emergency unlocked positions. Transport systems shut down, trapping security teams in various sections of the facility. "What is happening?" Commander Vex demanded over the failing communication system. "Report status on all systems, sir," came Major Blix's strained voice through static. "We are experiencing facility-wide system failures." The human somehow gained access to our primary engineering controls. In the engineering section, Kane finished his sabotage work and turned to address the terrified technicians. You have all been very helpful during my stay here. I genuinely enjoyed our conversations. When this is over, you might want to review your information security protocols. Kane moved toward the emergency stairwell that would lead him to the facility's shuttle bay. According to his intelligence, gathered from casual conversations with various staff members, a maintenance shuttle was kept fueled and ready for emergency evacuation procedures. As he climbed the stairs, Kane encountered his first armed resistance. Two security guards had positioned themselves at the stairwell entrance, weapons ready. Halt. One guard shouted, "Surrender immediately, or we will open fire." Kane's response demonstrated combat skills that had been completely hidden during his weeks of friendly imprisonment. Moving with blinding speed, he disarmed both guards using techniques they had never seen before, leaving them unconscious but unharmed within seconds. "Nothing personal," Kane said to the unconscious guards. "You were actually quite pleasant company." The shuttle bay was heavily defended, with 6 security personnel positioned to prevent any escape attempt. Kane paused at the entrance, studying their positions while emergency alarms continued to wail throughout the facility. "Human." Security Chief Thane's voice called out from behind strategic cover. "You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to military conventions." Kane stepped into the shuttle bay with his hands partially raised, the friendly prisoner mask sliding back into place. "Chief Thane. There you are. I was looking for someone in authority to help resolve this misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Thane's voice carried disbelief. "You have stolen classified research data and sabotaged critical facility systems." "Well, yes," Kane admitted with an apologetic shrug. "But I tried to be polite about it. And I made sure not to damage anything that would endanger the staff. I rather like most of you." "You will return the stolen data immediately," Thane demanded. Kane's expression became genuinely regretful. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Chief. That information is rather important to my people's survival." "Then you will not leave this facility alive." Kane's demeanor shifted one final time, revealing the true professional beneath the friendly facade. "Chief Thane, you and your people have been excellent hosts. But I have a job to finish." What happened next lasted less than 30 seconds but demonstrated why Marcus Kane was considered one of humanity's most elite operatives. Moving with calculated precision, Kane systematically neutralized all 6 security personnel using a combination of advanced combat techniques, improvised weapons, and intimate knowledge of the shuttle bay layout he had observed during previous conversations. As the last guard fell unconscious, Kane activated the maintenance shuttle systems and began pre-flight procedures. Through the shuttle bay's communication system, he heard Commander Vex's desperate orders to seal the facility and prevent any vehicle from leaving. "Too late for that, I'm afraid," Kane said to himself as the shuttle's engines powered up. The facility's automated defenses attempted to engage, but Kane's sabotage had disabled their targeting systems. As his shuttle lifted off from the lunar surface, Kane opened a communication channel to the facility. "Research Station Omega-7, this is Marcus Kane. Thank you for your hospitality during my visit. Your facility is truly impressive, and your staff showed remarkable kindness to a supposed enemy prisoner." Commander Vex's furious voice responded, "Kane, you will not escape this system alive. We will hunt you down." "Perhaps," Kane replied as his shuttle's hyperdrive began charging. "But I accomplished what I came here to do. And honestly, I hope some of you survive what's coming. You are not all bad people." As Kane's shuttle disappeared into hyperspace, carrying the complete research data for Project Starbane, Research Station Omega-7's command staff stood in the devastated shuttle bay, finally understanding the scope of their defeat. They had been completely, thoroughly, and professionally outplayed by a human who had turned their own kindness and curiosity against them. The silence in the command center of Research Station Omega-7 was deafening. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vex found himself completely at a loss for words as the full magnitude of their situation became clear. Damage report, he finally managed, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and humiliation. Lieutenant Krill, whose nervous energy had been replaced by shell-shocked stillness, consulted his data pad with trembling hands. Sir, the human gained access to our complete Project Starbane research database. 17 years of classified weapons development, gone. Facility security status? Vex asked, though he dreaded the answer. Major Blix's scarred carapace seemed to have acquired new damage during the night's events, though Vex realized it was actually stress-induced molting. Commander, he didn't just steal the data. He compromised our entire operational security. Personnel files, duty rotations, emergency protocols, communication frequencies, defensive capabilities. Kane now possesses detailed intelligence about every aspect of this facility. Chief Intelligence Officer Zorth entered the command center, his massive frame moving with the defeated gait of someone whose professional expertise had been utterly demolished. Commander, I have completed my analysis of the security breach. Report, Vex said, though he suspected he wouldn't like what he heard. The human's infiltration was perfect, Zorth began, his voice carrying grudging professional admiration. From the moment of his supposed capture, every action was calculated to gather maximum intelligence while appearing completely innocent. Zorth activated the main display, showing a timeline of Kane's activities during his imprisonment. He used our own psychological profiles against us. Humans are known for curiosity and social behavior, so his questions seemed natural. He exploited our cultural tendency to take pride in our technological achievements, making us eager to explain our systems. Explain how he gained access to classified information, Vex demanded. He never asked for classified information directly, Zorth replied grimly. Instead, he asked about routine procedures, maintenance schedules, safety protocols, information that individual staff members considered harmless. But when combined, these details provided a complete picture of our operations. Security Chief Thane, who had been standing silently near the viewport, finally spoke. Commander, I have reviewed all surveillance footage from Kane's imprisonment. With the benefit of hindsight, his true nature is obvious. Show me, Vex ordered. The display shifted to show Kane's first day in detention. To untrained eyes, it looked like a defeated prisoner adapting to confinement. But now Vex could see the subtle intelligence in Kane's movements, the way his eyes catalogued every detail of his environment, the careful precision of his seemingly casual exercises. Watch his interaction with the guards, Thane directed. The footage showed Kane's early conversations with Flux and Nyx. What had appeared to be friendly curiosity now revealed itself as masterful intelligence gathering. Every question was designed to elicit specific information. Every personal story Kane shared was calculated to build trust and encourage reciprocal sharing. The atmospheric crisis, Zorth added, was orchestrated. Kane created a minor malfunction that he could then solve, establishing himself as helpful while gaining access to maintenance protocols. Vex watched in horror as the security footage revealed Kane's systematic manipulation of his staff. The human had identified the most talkative personnel, the ones most likely to take pride in their work, the ones who would enjoy teaching a curious prisoner about their sophisticated systems. His language learning, Thane continued, was accelerated far beyond normal human capabilities. He was already fluent in Vorthak before his capture. The lessons with our guards were simply an excuse to engage them in detailed conversations about facility operations. The display showed Kane's recreation periods, which now looked like reconnaissance missions disguised as social visits. Every friendly conversation had been a briefing session. Every joke and story had been carefully chosen to lower defenses and encourage information sharing. The night movements in his cell? Vex asked. Testing response times, measuring distances, practicing escape routes, Thane replied. He was conducting detailed preparation for his escape while we thought he was having trouble sleeping. Lieutenant Krill's voice was barely audible as he spoke. Sir, how did we miss all of this? How did an entire facility of trained military personnel get fooled by one human? Zorth answered with the weary tone of someone whose worldview had been fundamentally shaken. Because he understood us better than we understood ourselves. Kane exploited our cultural values, our pride in our achievements, our natural desire to share knowledge with someone who showed genuine appreciation. Moreover, Thane added, he made us like him. Genuinely like him. It's much harder to suspect someone you consider a friend. Commander Vex reviewed the personnel reports from Kane's imprisonment. Guard after guard had noted the human's pleasant demeanor, his helpful attitude, his apparent interest in Vorthak culture. Several had specifically recommended continued recreation privileges and improved treatment. He weaponized our own kindness, Vex said quietly. Worse than that, Zorth replied. He made us complicit in our own defeat. Every piece of information he gathered was voluntarily provided by our own personnel who thought they were being helpful to a curious prisoner. The command center's communication system activated, revealing an incoming priority message from Vorthak High Command. Admiral Kron's intimidating visage filled the screen, his expression promising consequences that Vex preferred not to contemplate. Commander Vex, the Admiral's voice carried the cold fury of absolute authority. He explained how a single human operative managed to steal our most classified research and escape from your supposedly secure facility. Vex straightened, knowing his career was effectively over but determined to maintain some dignity. Admiral, we were deceived by an infiltration specialist of extraordinary capability. The human never broke character during weeks of imprisonment and interrogation. Weeks? Admiral Kron's voice rose dangerously. You held him for weeks and learned nothing while he learned everything. Sir, the human's operation was flawless. He used our own protocols and personnel against us while maintaining the perfect facade of a defeated prisoner. This failure has compromised not just Project Starbane, but our entire strategic position in this sector, the Admiral continued. The human now possesses detailed intelligence about our capabilities, our defenses, and our research programs. Major Blix stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, the human showed capabilities far beyond standard military training. His operation demonstrated planning and execution that suggests Earth's special forces are more sophisticated than our intelligence estimated. Admiral Kron's expression grew even more grim. That Major is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this entire debacle. If Earth can produce operatives of this caliber, we may have seriously underestimated our enemy. The communication ended, leaving the command staff to contemplate their uncertain future. As his officers filed out to begin damage assessment and security reviews, Commander Vex remained alone in the command center, staring at the security monitors. He called up the final footage of Kane before his escape, watching the human's transformation from friendly prisoner to elite operative. The change was subtle but complete. The curious smile became a calculating assessment. The friendly posture shifted to predatory readiness. The helpful prisoner revealed himself as a dangerous professional. Computer, Vex said quietly, replay all footage of the human prisoner. Continuous loop, all interactions. For hours, Commander Vex watched Marcus Kane's performance, seeing clearly now what he had missed before. Every smile had been calculated. Every question had been targeted. Every friendly gesture had been cover for intelligence gathering. The most humiliating realization was that Kane had genuinely seemed to like them. Even while systematically defeating them, the human had shown real warmth toward the staff who had treated him well. He had sabotaged their facility while ensuring no one would be seriously harmed. He had stolen their most vital secrets while expressing sincere admiration for their technological achievements. As the twin suns set over Kepler 442 billion, casting long shadows across the compromised research station, Commander Vex finally understood the true horror of their situation. They hadn't just been defeated by a superior enemy. They had been outclassed so completely that they had never even realized a battle was taking place. Marcus Kane had walked into their most secure facility, stolen their most classified research, compromised their entire operation, and escaped without harming a single person. And he had accomplished it all by being genuinely likable. Somewhere in the depths of space, Kane was probably reporting his success to Earth Command and providing humanity with both the stolen research data and detailed intelligence about Vorthak capabilities. The war had just shifted dramatically in humanity's favor, and it had happened because one human had understood that the best way to defeat an enemy was to make them want to help you. Vex continued watching the footage, studying Kane's perfect performance, and finally admitted the truth that would haunt him for the rest of his military career. They had never stood a chance.